Welcome to iAMradio. I have finished the 24 broadcast series. They're available on the little triangle on my profile and also on youtube.com/The Shaley Show. And so now we're starting a new iteration, and I'm going to try doing different shows. So this will be the You're Already Here Though show on iAMradio. Hey guys, hey David. And for these, I want to target 20-ish minutes. And because we're just focused on the one topic, you're already here though, I'm not sure how I'll break apart it. I'd love to do it relative to questions or points of the audience. Back at you. So if you have anything that you're working on personally that's sticking, I would take it into the topic and use the topic to explain your way out. All right, so on the You're Already Here Though show, my main point is the main point, which means that you allow yourself to acknowledge that all the other shit you're trying to do is to allow for you to be present. This is where it happens. This is where it's at. And I love this topic because it's also true if you are on the spiritual path. All types of paths are essentially implying that you're going somewhere. And it's not to say that things don't evolve. It's not to say that you don't change, your experience doesn't evolve or change. It's only to say your relationship to that movement is really the point, because the movement never stops. Ain't no stop. And in this little graphic I started before I pressed live, I have all kinds of noise, and then I have what came to me to draw as the here and now point. And this outside noise is the world. And in here, this is your head space, and then I think this is going to be your emotional body. And the totality of this would be your being. Of course, there's a lot that goes like other types of pieces and things, but when it comes to what you can consciously work on or work with, I'm going to just keep it to these 2 points. So when I first started doing this work in 2013, I've been coaching since 2013, I was like, I'm going to get people fit, then they'll be happy, then they won't hurt. And then it evolved to like, I'm going to teach people how to, do things that are happy. Then it was be aware of their emotions. And then it was be in relationship, like on and on and on and on. But that's not where happiness is. That's where happiness flows. Those are expressions of what we're seeking, which is really the self. And so the self is the experience of the self that we're seeking is really union with isness, which sounds like silence. So that means that you are in flow with what is, in joy, in love, which means you don't have ideas that make you afraid or feel like you're not enough or feel any type of way that's not like, okay, here we are. That relationship is what I'm talking about when we're looking at the path that don't stop, won't stop. Because you can have shit on the path that hurts. You can have shit on the path that's like, scary or upsetting or sad or, whatever. But if your relationship to it is what I just described, where you're sort of one with it and you don't have resistance to it, that means you don't think it should be other than it is, then you witness kind of the river of life go by. And you're there for it. You enjoy it. You're not saying the river should go a different way. You're not saying this is wrong. You're one with life. And as far as I can tell, that's really the only destination we can pin down in this experience, because again, it's always moving. And let's say that you got something perfect in your life. Maybe it's your relationship or your house or your body or whatever. The environment that exists in is always changing. And so again, it's not being able to control or create perfect circumstances. but rather develop a perfect relationship to those circumstances, which is essentially acceptance. Does anyone have any questions so far? This topic, and I'm open to feedback on this, but it doesn't sound like this is the solution to your problems, but I promise you, this is the solution to your problems. Because I tried on and did all the other things, not just for myself, but just as my practice with clients evolved. Those were all things outside, but it's really, again, the relationship to those things outside. And that's why we're on the, but right here though show, because what's here though is you. And it gets a little, depending where you are on your journey, that might mean different things. So when I'm talking about you as an expression of the divine. I'm talking about you as God. I'm talking about you as a perfect manifestation, thumbprint of all that is. And that looks like what's most natural and resonates with you. So I think of it kind of like each person has a unique vibration set point, and that's a very simplified explanation of it. But when they are in harmony with that, meaning their thoughts, their feelings, it's all together, there's non-resistance, there's not judgment. That's really the experience of being home. That's being yourself. You're not saying you should feel different, you should think different, you should like different. You're sort of saying I am. And why it's right here though is a little trippy, is that while there is a practice of revealing the self, that point I just talked about, I accept me as I am, you can tap into that right now. You could take a second and say I accept myself exactly as I am, and boom, you're there. You're in harmony. That's all that it is. And it can be challenging for our little conditioned heads to think yeah, but I'm still fat here, and I'm not rich there, and I'm all alone, and yet those are all conditions again. And it's not to say that your experience of self, again, it won't rise or improve. It's just saying what you're looking for, that relief, is in this moment, is already here though, and you tap into it through acceptance. And what's so powerful about that is when you do that, it clears all. It's imagine having one of those mobiles that kids have over their cribs. You have all these mobiles in your head, and they're think about this, don't forget about that, did you know about this? It's all the time. And you're trying to look through the mobiles to the moment where you can actually touch shit and do stuff. It's so hard to see. And so often what happens is we're looking through the mobiles and we see somebody do something and we interpret it wrong. And we respond to it from how we interpreted it instead of how it was. And that fucks some stuff up. We got some problems to clean up. It's not that harmonious because, it's you're not dancing on beat. And then let's say that you're looking at your task list through the mobiles. Well, it's really hard to prioritize, truly, if you're not really sure what matters to you, and you can't really be sure with all this shit moving around. So coming to the present allows for you to actually do something about your life. And we think that, or we've been trained to think that, being dazzled by how many mobiles you have makes you special. Oh, I think so much. I'm always thinking. Does that work for you? Does that make you happy? And it's not to say don't use your imagination or your mind intentionally or constructively, but if those mobiles are, if one of them's about your past and one of them's about your future and one's about these things that didn't happen but couldn't have happened, and what you ate for, if it's that kind of shit, is it helpful to you? So presence to me is allowing the mobiles to come to stillness, and then you kind of part them and you present yourself to what is, and you act on, listen to, respond to what's actually happening. It's super powerful. I don't know, it's probably more noticeable, this experiment would probably be more noticeable in a city than a rural area, because in rural areas people are already moving at a more intentional or slower pace, maybe both, maybe neither. In urban areas, everybody's going somewhere fast, and you can tell that when you're speaking to them, they're not really there. They're not really listening to you. They're like 5 thoughts ahead, or they're 5 thoughts behind, or laterally, do I look okay? Are they looking at me? Is it like this? So when you're interacting, there's so much that's lost, and that feeling of connecting that's lost when the person isn't present is what they're trying to find other places. They're like, oh, if I hurry up and get the promotion, then I'll be able to feel good enough and important, but it's right here. It's right here. And what I'm trying to, I guess, in this first show underline is that when you allow yourself to come to this point, the point continues to move. So you go along your journey and you're unfolding it. It's like driving across country. But rather than be consumed by the noise in the car or the mobiles in your head, you actually get to look out and see like, oh, that's different than the last state. I really like to stop over there. Or, hey, this seems interesting. You actually get to enjoy the journey cross country rather than be overwhelmed about shit that's not real. And if you would have told me what I was looking for at various points until probably this year was the present, maybe at some points I could have heard a piece of that, but I still was like, no, but over here though, I need this. And over here though, but first I gotta get there. No. It's right here though. Where you're looking is right here though. And I think the best way to demo this material is don't believe me. Never believe me. You're your own expert. I'm just sitting up here putting ideas on your table for you to play around with. Experiment. Say hey, for a week, 2 days, 3 hours, I'm going to act like where I am is where it's at. And when the mobiles start to go, I'm just going to press pause and say honey, you can spin later, but right now I'm going to be here. And the bottom half of this, so that was kind of like what's happening at the head. The rest is kind of in the body. What happens when the mobiles stop is you're here. That's the point, right? And when you're here, though, you feel the shit that's here. And if you haven't really spent a lot of time being present, when you drop into that lower triangle, it doesn't feel that good. That's why we distract ourselves with eating too much, exercising it off, eating too little, or watching shows or talking shit or getting consumed in the news. It's easier to be lost in those things at first, and in some ways, than it is to feel your way into the present. So I do recommend being kind and gentle to yourself while you drop into this one. But remember, what's here is what you're trying to get up here. So you can do this till you die, but you'll never really be present until you get to be present. And I've never drawn it like this, so I don't really know what the deal is. But this is where you're trying to go. And that's the point that's on the road. And that's the point that's okay, cool, look, I'm alive. I'm here for it. I'm going to enjoy it intentionally. I can't tell you. I guess I probably could count some time. But I have died so many times in this experience. And by that, I mean my ideas of who I am, ideas of how things are, relationships, cities, professions, like so many times that eventually it's like I've come to a beautiful place where I can appreciate the fleetingness and just enjoy it, because I'm halfway done, probably, or almost more than a third of the way done with all this experience or this ride. And thank God it was rocky enough to jostle me into that so I can be present for the rest of it. But that's really, like, that's true for all of us. So you have this opportunity to kind of be awake to your life, or you can resist it, talk shit on it, all these things. And again, until you drop into here, it's real tough to make any big changes up here, because you're not really doing anything. You're just in your head. If you want to move stuff, you got to move it out here. And that's not to say, thoughts don't create things. It's not to say there's not power in what you're tuned to. Like, absolutely, there's a component of that. But that, to me, is secondary to arriving where you are. There's no point, as far as I can tell, and I think from what I've seen, this varies depending on the sensitivity of the individual. If you're trying really hard to get, it's likely because you don't want to be where you are. And that would mean that there's a lot of shit to feel in this lower triangle. But until you come to terms with that, your point of attraction is still not here, not this. And so everywhere you go, not here, not this, that's the light that you have flipped on. You can't outrun your reason for running. You can't. It's not until you really sit into it and you welcome it home, that it's no longer active in your vibration or your point of attraction, as far as I can tell. And again, I think there are varying degrees of sensitivity. It seems like the more that you've been hurt or the more pain that you felt, the bigger this lower triangle, the heavier it is and the harder it is to be like, oh no, I'd rather be there though. It's just your magnet is like, but why? Oh, because you don't want to be here. So it's just more of not here, not here, not here, not here. All right, I'm going to wrap up here. This is my first iAMradio broadcast of, but you're, I forget exactly what I called it. The You're Already Here Though show. And I'm going to see what happens as this series evolves. I might do 5 or 6 on just this one topic and then pick another topic. All topics are ultimately, from my vantage point anyhow, to allow for you to come to accept here and to get out of here. So we can talk about it a bunch of different ways: healing, trauma, law of attraction, etc. But as far as I can tell, this is the core teaching, and we'd just be talking about it from different ways. And it might be helpful to know that I'm not coming at this like I didn't ride a unicorn to this understanding. Like, I crawled through a lot of shit, up a lot of hills, a lot of mud. I did this stuff the hard way, the longest way I think I could find, just to say like, oh no, it's not over there. You probably don't want to go over there. And this is a simplification of all of that work and of working with people for one-on-one for years. This is really like what it rolls up to. This is what it sums up to. And that's what I want to offer. And I totally encourage everybody to take their own journey in their own time, in their own way. And yet, if this resonates, like, the more present you can come to your journey, which would include how you unfolding, because you're going to keep unfolding. If you're on the path, if you're doing the work, it's layer after layer after, oh, I didn't know, I thought I was stuck. Well, it's layer, 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 layer. And again, it's your relationship to that journey that determines the quality of your experience. So thank you all for coming out for the first but you already hear the show of an iAMradio broadcast. If you have any feedback, topics, ideas, I would love to hear them, and I wish you all the best.